My mother-in-law hacked into my company's security system, so I had to report her to our cybersecurity team. When my wife threatened to leave me if I pursued the investigation, I filed for divorce instead. First update. Linda, my mother-in-law, has always displayed signs of instability, and Emma's enabling of her behavior has been straining our marriage lately. It started when Linda demanded I upgrade her phone's security system because her old one was compromised. When I explained that her 2-year-old phone was still perfectly secure, she threw a tantrum like a child, literally pounding her fists on our hardwood floor. I stood firm in my refusal, so she stormed out, but not before shouting that she'd find a way to get what she wanted. Working as an IT security consultant, I should have taken that threat more seriously. A few days later, I received an alert about an unauthorized access attempt on one of my work projects. Someone had tried to breach our company's security protocols using my credentials. When I checked the logs, I discovered multiple access attempts from Linda's IP address. The timestamps showed she had been trying to break in for hours, methodically working through different approaches. I immediately called her, demanding an explanation. She laughed it off, admitting she'd already accessed some interesting files and threatened to leak them unless I helped her with her security upgrade. Her voice had that smug tone that made my blood boil. When I told her this was a federal offense, she dismissively said it was my fault for not helping her in the first place. Emma seemed to be on my side when I first explained what happened, until I mentioned involving our company's security team. Her face changed instantly. "David, please," she begged, her counselor's composure cracking. "There must be another way to handle this. Mom's not well, you know that. But I couldn't just let this go." This wasn't about a phone anymore. This was about corporate espionage and potential data breaches that could affect hundreds of clients. To answer the obvious question, how did she get enough information to attempt this? Emma had shared my work passwords with her mother, just in case of emergencies, when we first moved in together. That's why. Security Incident Investigation. I reviewed our security protocols that evening and found multiple breach attempts. Opening my laptop, I contacted our company's incident response team through our secure channel. Within an hour of my non-emergency report, they had a full team assembled. I had everything prepared: access logs, IP traces, and even text messages I'd carefully gathered from Linda to document her attempts and admissions. The security team took the situation more seriously than I'd anticipated. Initially, I worried they might dismiss it as a family dispute, since the perpetrator was my mother-in-law, who had obtained access through my own wife. However, the potential for data breaches involving client information elevated this to a critical incident. While the team began their investigation, I received a series of texts from Linda. Her messages shifted from smug superiority to outright taunting. What kind of security expert can't even protect his own credentials? LOL, she wrote. When I demanded she detail exactly what information she'd accessed, she replied with a dismissive, "Wouldn't you like to know?" Followed by, "Your precious company's secrets aren't so secret anymore." I saved every message. Knowing each one strengthened the case against her. The investigation revealed she had attempted to access our client database, which contained sensitive information about cybersecurity vulnerabilities in major corporations. The potential damage could have been catastrophic. If that information had been leaked or sold, it would have affected not just my career, but potentially compromised the security of hundreds of businesses. Confrontation. Emma's reaction when she found out about the investigation was explosive. "You're going to destroy Mom's life," she screamed, her professional demeanor completely shattered. I tried explaining the seriousness of the situation, but she kept interrupting with excuses about her mother's mental state. The irony of a mental health professional enabling such destructive behavior wasn't lost on me. The security team moved quickly. They gathered enough evidence to pursue legal action, and Linda was detained for questioning. I ensured they had copies of all her threatening messages and access logs. The company's legal team began preparing documentation for potential federal charges related to attempted cybercrimes. I felt a mix of relief and sadness watching the situation unfold. The cabinet my vintage keys had been stored in was replaced by digital logs and legal documents, but the violation felt just as personal. The company I'd helped build security systems for was now using those same systems to track and document my mother-in-law's crimes. Emma paid Linda's bail using money from our joint account, then sent me a cold, "I took care of it since you caused this" message. The familiar pattern of her enabling behavior continued, but now with potentially far-reaching consequences for both our marriage and my career. At home, evening confrontation. I'd already moved my workstation into our home office, ensuring every device was secure with new protocols. Emma's constant defense of her mother had created an unbridgeable gap between us. Her background in counseling should have helped her recognize the toxic patterns, but instead, she seemed to use her professional knowledge to justify and enable Linda's behavior. "You need to drop the investigation," Emma demanded, standing in the doorway of my home office. Her voice carried that clinical tone she usually reserved for difficult therapy sessions. "If you really love me, you'll help cover the legal fees too." When I refused, she moved into the spare bedroom. She tried to claim the master bedroom first, but I stood my ground. "This isn't a therapy session where you can manipulate the situation," I told her firmly. As she attempted to move my things, I blocked her path and pointed at her, not aggressively, but definitively. She immediately switched to victim mode, crying about how I was demeaning her, but I'd grown immune to these tactical emotions. The breaking point. That's when she revealed something that made my blood run cold. "I was going to move Mom in with us anyway," she spat out, her professional mask completely dropped. "Her house is falling apart, and I was just waiting for the right moment. I would have done it while you were at work." I felt my cybersecurity training kick in. Always verify, always protect, always have a backup plan. "As long as I'm paying half the lease," I stated calmly, "your mother will not step foot in this house. Try it, and I'll have her removed immediately." Emma's face contorted with rage. She stormed off to the kitchen, phone already in hand, no doubt calling Linda. I could hear her voice rising and falling as she paced, probably crafting another narrative where they were the victims and I was the villain. Taking action. I began methodically securing my life just as I would secure a compromised system. I changed every password, removed my funds from our joint account, and stopped all automated payments. I made sure to document every financial transaction, taking only what I had contributed. The account still maintained its minimum balance. I'm a professional, after all, not a vindictive ex. I contacted several divorce attorneys, eventually choosing one who understood the complexity of cases involving cybersecurity and mental health issues. She was sharp, experienced, and most importantly, recognized the potential professional ramifications of Linda's actions. Service of divorce papers. I had Emma served with divorce papers at her counseling practice. The irony wasn't lost on me. A mental health professional being served divorce papers between client sessions. When she came home that evening, her carefully maintained professional composure finally cracked completely. "You can't do this," she burst out, waving the papers. "Do you know how this makes me look at work?" Her concern for appearance over substance just confirmed I'd made the right decision. "I learned something interesting recently," I replied calmly, using the same measured tone I use in security briefings. "When people show you who they really are, believe them. You've shown me exactly where your priorities lie, and they're not with our marriage or my career." She tried to deflect, claiming she wasn't choosing her mother over me. But when I asked if she'd stay married to me, if I had compromised her professional ethics and client confidentiality, she couldn't answer. The silence spoke volumes. Moving forward, I informed her I wouldn't be renewing the lease on our house. If you want to turn this place into a shelter for someone who committed cyber crimes, you can do it without me, I said. That's when the real breakdown began. She accused me of destroying our family, to which I could only respond, "What family? Your mother's actions could have destroyed my entire career. And you defended her. We never had a real partnership. As a security consultant, I knew the importance of having a clean exit strategy. I'd already found a one-bedroom apartment closer to my office, requiring renovation but offering better security features. I didn't tell Emma the location. After seeing how easily she'd shared my security credentials with Linda, I wasn't taking any chances. The apartment complex I chose had keycard access and 24/7 security monitoring, a stark contrast to our current house, where Emma had freely given out access to anyone she pleased. I began planning my move methodically, the same way I'd plan a system upgrade. Each step was calculated, documented, and secure. Security measures. Emma's attempts at reconciliation became increasingly desperate. She tried to access my new work laptop, probably hoping to find details about my plans or the apartment. I caught her through the security protocols I'd installed. Another betrayal of trust that just reinforced my decision. I locked the master bedroom door when I slept and installed my own monitoring system. After seeing her willingness to compromise security once, I wasn't taking any chances with my personal or professional life. The same skills that made me good at my job were now protecting me from my own wife. Professional consequences. During this time, I made an anonymous report to the company's ethics board about Linda's history of cyber harassment. Someone had suggested documenting all security incidents, and given her escalating behavior, it seemed prudent. The report detailed her attempts to breach company security, her threats, and the potential risks she posed to client data. The investigation revealed more than I'd anticipated. Linda had been attempting to access not just my credentials, but had been probing our entire network for vulnerabilities. The logs showed systematic attempts to breach our firewall, indicating this wasn't just an emotional response, but a calculated attack. The company's cybersecurity audit found multiple suspicious access attempts from her IP address over several months. Emma discovered it was my report when the investigation findings were released. She stormed home, face flushed with anger. "Do you know what you've done?" she shouted. "They're looking into Mom's entire online history now. She could face federal charges." I maintained my professional composure, the same way I would during a security breach debriefing. If I hadn't reported it, someone else would have eventually. The logs don't lie, Emma. This wasn't a one-time emotional outburst. These were calculated attempts to breach corporate security. The final crisis. What happened next was unexpected. When Emma told Linda about the investigation's scope, Linda had a complete meltdown. She began frantically trying to delete her digital footprint, which only made things worse. During her panic, she suffered a heart attack, something none of us knew she was at risk for. Emma came home with a police officer, hysterical, and blaming me for everything. Through her accusations, I learned that Linda had a pre-existing heart condition, information that, like so many other things, had been kept from me. The officer had to physically separate Emma from me as she alternated between sobbing and screaming accusations. Aftermath. I spent the next few days in a haze, managing both personal guilt and professional aftermath. My colleagues assured me that the security protocols I'd helped implement had actually prevented any serious data breaches. Linda's attempts, while concerning, hadn't successfully compromised any client information. Emma never returned to the house, except to collect her things. Her last message was professional and detached, like one of her client notes. I'll have my lawyer contact yours regarding the divorce proceedings. The incident response procedures I'd helped design for work now seemed ironically applicable to my personal life. Identify the breach, contain the damage, implement new security measures, and document everything for future reference. As I packed my office for the move to my new apartment, I realized that sometimes the best security measures can't protect you from the people you trust most. Epilogue. 3 months later. Sitting in my new apartment's home office, surrounded by multiple monitors displaying security protocols I'd designed, I reflected on how my professional life had paradoxically strengthened through this personal crisis. The company had implemented several of my suggested security measures after the incident, particularly focusing on internal threat assessment and access management. The divorce proceedings moved forward efficiently. My lawyer, a sharp woman who specialized in cases involving cybersecurity, handled everything professionally. Emma didn't contest much. I think her professional background made her recognize the futility of dragging things out. We had comparable incomes, no children, and now, thankfully, no shared digital assets to untangle. I've upgraded my personal security significantly. My new apartment has a state-of-the-art security system that I personally configured. The irony isn't lost on me that I now feel more secure in this smaller space than I ever did in our house. I've implemented the same rigorous protocols in my personal life that I recommend to clients: regular security audits, access monitoring, and zero-trust architecture. The company's investigation into Linda's activities concluded with a comprehensive report. The findings led to several improvements in our security protocols, particularly regarding credential sharing and access management. In an unexpected twist, I was promoted to head of internal security training, using my personal experience to help others understand the importance of maintaining digital boundaries, even with family. I've started giving talks at cybersecurity conferences about personal security and the intersection of professional and private life. The experience taught me that sometimes the biggest security threats don't come from anonymous hackers, but from those closest to us who believe they're entitled to access. Emma occasionally reaches out through our lawyers, usually regarding final paperwork. Her messages maintain that clinical distance she perfected as a counselor. I heard she's moved to a different practice, specializing in family therapy. Another irony I try not to dwell on. In the end, I learned that security isn't just about firewalls and encryption. It's about understanding that trust, once broken, can't be patched like a software vulnerability. As I implement new security protocols at work, I can't help but see the parallels with personal boundaries. Both require constant vigilance, clear rules, and the courage to enforce them.